Now, at the age of 78, Benny Andersson has at last told the true tale of ABBA, an account that far exceeds music and stardom. It's the painful escapist and individual struggle that forged the legendary sound of the group. Benny gets honest about the dark reality that fans intuited long before they truly experienced, revealing that beneath the glitter and the songs existed a man seeking purpose in music. Before the world knew about ABBA, Benny was just a kid in love with songs, not stardom. He was raised in an environment exposed to classical and folk sounds, where he learned the essence of structure and feeling before he even played a synthesizer. Though the world would come to sing along to the Dancing Queen, the beginnings of Benny were in Swedish accordion songs and church choruses. These early beginnings provided him with a musical compass that remained true, one that directed the development of ABBA way beyond the disco lights and short-term trends. His music was done from a place that was of the heart, not of the month. The partnership of Benny with Björn Ulvaeus produced an unusual equilibrium. Benny constructed the chords, textures, and emotional resonance, while Björn wrote the tales and lyrics. Together, they produced songs that sounded deceptively easy, yet possessed great emotional heft. Benny didn't compose music, he chiseled it gradually, in thin, incremental layers, until it seemed animate. In the recording studio, he was tireless, honing a single harmony or note over the course of days, seeking not perfection but veracity. Every song for him was an emotional communique, even when the world received only a hook. While Agnetha and Frida stood in the spotlight, Benny often stayed in the background, quietly holding everything together. He once admitted that he never felt seen in ABBA, not as a star, but as a craftsman. Fans adored the singers, but few noticed the man arranging every string and echo. Behind the control room glass, Benny bore the pressure to make everything work. He was the fixer, the glue that held the group together when creative tensions rose, even though that role quietly wore him down. Few understand how much Benny defined the sound of ABBA. Without him, their songs would likely have seemed cheerless yet shallow. His chord voicings added melancholy to happy songs, the sort of subtlety that people felt yet couldn't define. He also experimented with technology, welcoming early synthesizers and multitrack recording to create dramatic atmospheres. Benny's brilliance was in choosing when to let silence tell the tale, when to refrain, to give the melody room to breathe. That self-control provided ABBA songs with enduring humanity. Later in interviews, Benny explained that music was how he dealt with feelings he couldn't in real life. Where others confronted emotions out in the open, he let the piano do the talking. Most of the most emotional songs written by ABBA were his means of evading confrontation, the therapy and escape. It recontextualizes the way we look at the group. Beneath their slick facade was a man surviving by means of melody. He wasn't aloof by choice. He was aloof because where he felt safest was in music. Now looking back, Benny admits he didn't chase fame. He chased feeling. While ABBA conquered the world, he often felt like a stranger inside his own creation. The applause never filled the silence, but the music still does. The truth behind ABBA's success wasn't just about music, it was about rivalry, ego, and the quiet exhaustion that comes from holding everything together. The friendship Benny shared with Frida creates another level of emotional depth in his narrative. Their relationship started with music, not romance. Those late nights in the recording studio made the boundary between collaboration and affection blur. Frida was free and intense. Benny was reserved and introverted. What their differences fueled in the music strained their love relationship. They wrote songs as emotional dialogues, feeling what they couldn't vocalize. But instead of mending, it drove them apart. Benny confesses he was more available in the emotional sense in the recording studio than he was in actual life. Music became his protection, his means to feel without being vulnerable. Such songs as The Winner Takes It All and One of Us were not mere ballads of sorrow. They were cryptic messages. The songs were Benny's form of processing regret without confronting it. Frida, however, lived every syllable that she sang. Their emotional disequilibrium, her frankness versus his reserve, developed and engulfed their relationship. Benny was not cheating, as the papers would imply. His sin was detachment. He was adept at writing pain, not distributing it. One of Benny's most chilling observations is his confession. I gave my best lines to songs, not to the people who needed to hear that from me. It sums up his lifelong tension. His music talked when he remained mute. He was not heartless, only fearful. His genius constructed musical barriers that shielded him yet alienated him as well. In retrospect, he recognizes that the same music that united them separated them as well. His best talent was as much his worst failing. In addition to the individual trials, Benny waged another, the battle for recognition. The fans loved the female stars of ABBA, while Benny and Bjorn were relegated to the men behind the music. Although he was the master builder of the sound of ABBA, incorporating the harmonies and the melodies that captured the generations, Benny felt invisible much of the time. Critics referred to him as the group's cold brain, technical, yet not emotional, when in reality, he was giving his all in every note. The unacknowledged rivalry was not among bandmates, but among Benny and perception itself. Glamour was in the faces, not the foundations. Glamour in the voices sold magazines, while Benny's unobtrusive craftsmanship was invisible. He yearned not for praise, but for comprehension, that his music was his language, his therapy. When others wrote off the songs of ABBA as catchy pop, they stung, because in every one was a fragment of his heart. Eventually, Benny ceased seeking validation and looked inwards, composing musicals and movie scores where he was in complete control. However, the pain of being misjudged persisted. He had at one point admitted that he used to read the reviews in the hope that somebody, somewhere would realize his pieces, the form, the feeling, but most didn't. He became a legend whose face people didn't remember. Benny confesses that by the end of ABBA, he was not there due to love or passion for the group. It was a sense of duty and guilt that made him stay in the group. He was there because he felt responsible for their success and didn't want to disappoint anyone. But in his heart, he knew that something was amiss. The creative exultation that had fueled him was no longer there. Instead, he felt the pressure of obligation instead of eagerness for the music. The demise was inauspicious. The end of the group was not in dramatic arguments or an elaborate breakup. There was no decent discussion over coffee or something. The group simply went their separate ways, and the silence that descended was deafening, more so than any farewell. Benny recollects the feeling that they never really talked about it as a group. There was an unspoken agreement that their chapter was over. Frida, on the other hand, had already begun to move on before the final curtain fell. She had emotionally detached from the band, ready to start a new chapter. Benny, however, struggled to let go. It took him nearly a decade to truly process ABBA's end. The silence after the split haunted him, and only later did he realize how deeply it had affected him. Looking back, Benny now sees that period not as scandal or conflict, but as a time of creative death. The well had simply run dry. The emotional exhaustion that followed wasn't visible to the public, who were searching for drama, but for those within ABBA, it was a quiet collapse, one that crept in slowly and unnoticed. For Benny, the end of ABBA didn't come in a single grand gesture, but in innumerable tiny episodes where the magic ran out. The love that once bound them together was lost, leaving only reminders of all they had been. But even when the music was done, there was pressure to live up to their heritage. The legacy of their success was burdensome, even as they went their individual ways. In retrospect, Benny sees that it wasn't simply creative burnout, emotional burnout. Their art, their people, had consumed them, leaving no reserves for themselves. His admission that he remained out of obligation, not desire, adds new nuance to their tale. It wasn't that they felt no love, it was that they didn't know how to break free. In reality, ABBA ended not with a bang, but with a sigh. It was a slow disillusion, a sense that the music had played its time. The breakup of the group was not motivated by scandal or rage, but by weariness and quiet acceptance. The end of ABBA was not in flames, but in silence. After the last curtain call of the group, Benny stepped back into the shadows, not to escape, but to mend. He shifted the spotlight to theater, symphony, and film scores, where he could compose free of the distraction of fame. Music became his refuge once more, raw, individual, and intensely personal. Ventures such as Chess and Christina Fran de Vemela were not merely new acts. They were therapy. Through them, Benny confronted emotional depths he had never permitted himself to encounter in the prime of ABBA. Liberated from commercial imperative, he refound the musician in him, the kid whose love of song surpassed that of fame. In the 90s, Benny even maintained a personal journal of unwritten letters to Frida, Agnetha, and Bjorn. In them, he wrote the words he was unable to speak decades before: guilt, love, regret, and thanks. These musings helped him come to grips with himself and the emotional toll of their shared history. In his later years, he started guiding younger Scandinavian composers, not only in the art of music, but in the value of emotional truth. He became a guide in melody, as much as in meaning, leading others to create from the truth, not the show. Now, Benny looks back at his post-ABBA years as a renewal. The anguished genius of his early years has mellowed into a thoughtful artist who prizes communication over perfection. In his teaching and composing, he's rediscovered serenity in creativity. His tale teaches us that reinvention can come to anyone, even to those who have had it all. And then there's the last confession, one that redefines all we thought we knew of ABBA. In his 78 years, Benny has finally come clean about what many long suspected. ABBA wasn't built on happiness. It was built on pain, escape, fractured humanity. ABBA succeeded because we were broken, he confesses. The music made us complete. Success was not rooted in perfection, then, but in imperfection. Their shared desire to feel alive through music. Looking back, Benny realizes that time didn't bring closure, but clarity. ABBA wasn't a fairy tale. We were four people trying not to fall apart, he says. The music was the only thing holding us together. The world saw their smiles and sequins, but beneath it all were human beings struggling to navigate love, loss, and fame. Their music wasn't just art, it was survival. ABBA didn't fall apart over scandal or fame. It disintegrated under the silent weight of feelings. The very bond that held them, their music, was the same that would not let them face their suffering. The happiness the crowd saw on stage was genuine, yet it was a disguise as well. Underneath every harmony was a heart striving to remain consistent. Now, Benny's reflection reframes ABBA's story as something profoundly human. Their rise was built on talent and timing, but their fall came from the limits of being human. They weren't gods of pop, they were people using music to hold themselves together. Today, Benny no longer chases applause or legacy. He chases truth. He has made peace with ABBA's imperfection, embracing it as the very thing that made their music timeless. Eventually, the group failed to break under the pressure of fame or loss. It broke under the pressure of being all too human, too weak to bear the weight of their own creation. The songs were their therapy, their bond, their release. And so, with Benny's revelation, we at long last come to understand that the real story of ABBA has nothing whatsoever to do with fame, glitter, or success. It has everything to do with pain, vulnerability, and the redemptive power of song. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Watch the next video appearing on your screen for more great and behind-the-frame content.